The Gemara, we're at the Gemara on the bottom of 36b. Rav Acha bar Huda, Rav Shmuel Brei the Rabba bar Chana, Rav Yitzchak Brei the Rav Yehuda. So all these rabbis, they said Tanu Shavuos, they taught Mesechah Shavuos Bei Rabba in the Academy of Rabba. Now, Pagabu Rav Kahana came there and he encountered them, and he had a question. Amar Lahu, Hazid b'Shavuos hapikadon v'hisru b'mahu. What happens if you advertently violated the Shavuos hapikadon and you got a warning? It's 6:16 already. I just started 30 seconds ago. Don't worry. So the history of what happens if you violated advertently and you got warned? So let's see, what are all the options? You get warned and you violated advertently. On the one hand, you say, Kaven de Chidishu. There's a certain novelty here in this oath of deposit that what? The Bechol Torah Kula, the Bechol Torah Lashkan Mezid, the Maisi Korban. In general, when you do something advertently, you don't bring. Don't worry. I got you. So when you do something advertently, you don't bring a korban usually. Here, by this oath, you bring a korban. Hacha Maisi Korban. So now, lo shna asrbe, velo shna lo asrbe. Doesn't matter if you got warned or not. You always bring a korban. The question is, the Gemara asked, the first Gemara on the Mishnah asked, you violated the oath of deposit advertently. What do you have to do? Do you bring a sacrifice only? Do you get lashes, or do you get both? Those are the three options. So we're going through the options now on the 37a, right? 4 lines down. So on the one hand, maybe you bring a sacrifice, whether you do it inadvertently or advertently, and that's it. And no lashes. O Dilma, the only time you bring an offering when you do it advertently is when witnesses didn't warn you. If witnesses were to warn you, milkalaki, you for sure get lashes, and korban lo maisi, and you would not bring a sacrifice. O Dilma hava havidna avdina, or you do both. So everyone agrees that the novelty here is that you can advertently violate the oath of deposit, and you still have to bring a sacrifice. The question is, what if witnesses warned you? They knew that you have the object in your garage, and the guy comes to you and says, "Hey, where's my object?" You're like, "No idea," and you deny it with an oath. So, and they know that it's stored in your garage. So they warn you: do not make a false oath. You're going to be liable, and he doesn't listen to them. So now that they warned him, does he still bring a sacrifice? Does he get lashes? Does he have to bring both? So now we're going to bring proofs back and forth for a while. So, Amarle Tanina. Chamura heimenu Shavuos hapikadon shechayav and alzadon makos bial shigaso asham bekesef shkalim. So there's a brisa that says that Shavuos hapikadon, our oath of deposit, is more stringent than an oath of testimony. Why is it more stringent? Why is it more stringent than an oath of testimony? Shechayav and alzadon makos. For violating it advertently, you get lashes. And for doing it inadvertently, you have to bring a korban asham, a guilt offering, that cost some money. I think we said 2 silvers, 2 shekels, yeah. So now, what's the proof? What we need is one thing. It says for violating advertently, you get lashes. Now you only get lashes if you get warned. Michlal de asrbe, must be they warned you. The ka'amar makosin korban lo. So from this brisa, it seems like you get lashes for violating the oath advertently. If you get lashes, it must be that you're warned. And when you're warned, which is our question, what happens when you're warned? You only get lashes and you don't bring a sacrifice. So that would answer our question. What happens when you violate it with a warning? The answer seems to be only lashes. So now the Gemara just parenthetically finishes off Ma'i Chumra. What's the what's the stringency? It says there's a stringency over here. People prefer to bring a sacrifice rather than get lashes. So when you do it inadvertently, you get lashes. That's the stringency. Yeah, by Shavuos, was that? By Shavuos Eidos, it's interesting. By the oath of testimony, the case of warning doesn't apply. Why not? So Rashi says the reason by the oath of testimony, there's no warning there. You can't warn someone and get lashes. So Rashi says, how do the witnesses know that? How do the warners, people that are warning, know that the witnesses, are denying testimony? How do they know? It's a Rashi to say they can't know. So two witnesses show up. Maybe they do know. Maybe they don't know. How can I warn them? My warning would only be a doubtful warning. So maybe they know, maybe they don't know. Tosa says, argues on Rashi, and they say the reason why you can't warn people before they testify, and therefore you're going to require lashes with oath of testimony, is because you'll never know if they did it advertently, because they could always say, "Oh, we forgot." They testify and say that we don't know testimony. They say, "Oh no, we forgot," and that would be an element of inadvertence. Either way, though, by Shavuos HaPikadon, then you for sure know that the person has the object and he's denying it. There you will get malchus. Okay. Amar Lahu Rabba Bar Isi Mantana Zadon Shavuos HaPikadon. You want to bring a proof from this brisa that told you that when you violate it inadvertently, you get lashes, and therefore you want to answer our question of what happens when you get warned. But he says, who's the author? Who's the one that says? Who's the opinion that says that by an oath of deposit, you don't bring any sacrifice? It's not able to be atoned for with a sacrifice. Lo nitin lekapara, Rabbi Shimon. That's Rabbi Shimon. Aval Rabbanan korban nami maisi. Maybe this brisa that you quoted that you don't bring a sacrifice if you do it advertently with witnesses was going like the opinion of Reb Shimon. Was going the opinion of Reb Shimon, who says that you're not able to bring a sacrifice. But really, according to the rabbis, you would have to bring a sacrifice. One second. Yeah. To that, the Gemara says, Amar Lahu Rav Kahana, Bar Mina Dahi. So aside from this brisa, the way you just taught it, you should know I taught it like this. The Ana Tanina law, I taught this brisa, and this is how I taught the brisa. So meaning, aside from this Rabbi Shimon way to get out of it, there's another way to get out of it. Because when I taught this brisa, I taught it in the following way. This is how I taught it. V'hachi Tanina law. Echad zidona, whether you violate the oath of deposit advertently, the echad shigagasa, or you violate it inadvertently, asham b'kesef shkalim, you have to bring the guilt offering, which costs 2 silver zuz. Okay. Umay chumra, the Bryce said there's some kind of stringency over here. What's the stringency? The ilu hasam, when it came to an oath of testimony, the chatas, your korban's only bazdanka. It cost only one danka, one of the currencies, one danka. The hacha you pay asham kesef shkolim. So the stringency was not that here you get lashes and there you don't get lashes. It just the stringency just is here your offering costs more than over there, but it's not talking about getting lashes. And since it's not talking about getting lashes, you can't bring a proof to your question of what happens when you get warned. Do you get lashes or not? From that, Bryce is not talking about lashes. It's talking about they have to pay more. So then says the Gemara, well, if that's true, that if you do something advertently, you don't get lashes. So ligmar mina, learn from there that whenever you deny the oath of testimony advertently, even with witnesses, the Brisa says you only bring a sacrifice. We had 3 options. What happens if you get warned to that you should not violate the oath of deposit, and yet you go and do it advertently? Do you get lashes and no sacrifice? Do you get lashes and a sacrifice? or do you only bring a sacrifice? So we have three options. So learn from here one of those options, so that you only bring a sacrifice. Says the Gemara, well, no, because Dilma Atzrbe. You don't know if they warned you or not. It just says if you do it inadvertently, then you have to bring a sacrifice. Did they warn you or did they not warn you? The price doesn't say. So our question was, if they warned you, what happens? If they didn't warn you, we never had a question. So you can't learn from this brisa to our question. So our question remains: what happens if two people warn the witnesses, do not lie about this? They warn the guy holding the object. Do not lie. If you're gonna lie, then you're gonna be punished. So and he does it anyways. Does he get lashes? Does he get a sacrifice? What does he get? Lishna Achrin, another version. Tashma ein chayav al shigagaso. You're not liable for doing it inadvertently. Ma hein chayav, and what are you liable for? Al zedona asham bekesef shkalim. So sounds like you're not liable something. What's the something? It says ein chayav al shigagaso. They're not liable for doing it inadvertently. What are they liable for? It sounds like maybe lashes. Al zedona asham bekesef shkalim. So ma'ilav bid asrbe. Are we not talking about a case where you got warned, and therefore when you're warned, all you're chayav for is a sacrifice, and you're not liable for lashes? Says the Gemara, no. Hachanami dilo asrbe. We're talking about a case where you were not warned, and therefore you can't bring a proof to what happens if you are warned, because we're talking about a case where you're not warned. Okay. Now we're going to have a brisa. Sounds like it starts in the middle, comparing our oath of deposit to a nazir who became impure. Let's see the comparison. Tashma lo im amers benazir tamei shekain loke tomer shos b'kadon she'ena loke. By a nazir tamei, if he gets lashes, if he's metame himself, if he becomes impure, he gets lashes. So for sure, you should say also by an oath of deposit that what, you shouldn't get lashes? You should get lashes also. Okay, so it's like a cryptic comparison between a nazir tamei and the oath of deposit. So what exactly it's talking about, we're going to try to figure out. Well, it says one thing, lashes. So midikamer loka, from the fact that a nazir gets malchus, must be that what mithlal dasrbe. It must be that they got warned. So we've established the brisa must be that there's a warning, or else there's no lashes. And the brisa says v'kamar tomar b'shus b'kadon she'eno loka. It says, and by shus b'kadon you don't get malchus, aval korban maisi, but a sacrifice you do bring. So we're talking about a case where you were warned, and a nazir, therefore, when he violates his nazirus, he gets lashes. Shavuos hapikadon, of the testimony of the deposit, even though you were warned, you don't get lashes. But what? Yeah, you bring a korban, aval korban maisi. So that should be a conclusive proof that even though you get warned, you only bring a sacrifice. You don't get lashes. Says the Gemara, no. When it says that you don't get lashes, you know what it means? My eno loka. Not getting lashes doesn't mean that you don't get lashes. What it means is you're not off the hook with lashes. Of course, you get lashes, but you don't get exempt with lashes. You have to also bring a sacrifice. So the cryptic line of eno loka, there's no lashes. What does no lashes mean? You don't get lashes, or you're not exempt with lashes. The eno niftar b'malchus. So that's what it means. So really, you would bring both. So says the Gemara, does that mean Michlal the Nazir Tameh is Yaniftar b'malchus? Now go back to the beginning of the brisa, that a Nazir who's impurifies himself, he gets off the hook with just getting lashes, but it's explicit over there. It says HaKorban Ksivbe. It says that a Nazir who becomes impure has to bring a sacrifice, so he can't get off the hook with lashes. Says the Gemara, no. Hasam the Maisi Korban Kiyek they take all Nazirs b'tahara. There, when a Nazir brings a sacrifice after he becomes impure, so it's not, there's two ways to go, but we're saying now that it's not because of atonement. Atonement would get him off the hook with lashes. When he gets lashes, he's atoned. You still need to bring a sacrifice in order to allow your Nazirus to work again in its pure state. So you bring a sacrifice not for atonement, but in order to enable a pure nazirus. Somehow the sacrifice like removes the nazirus from you. Somehow it enables the ability to become pure again. We have to see more about Masechtas Nazir. A little bit. Usually the korban's brought for atonement. The sacrifice brought for atonement. You became impure. You violated. You got to get atonement. But there's another opinion that says no. The atonement happened with whatever, with lashes. You bring a sacrifice in order that your new nazirus can take place. Somehow the sacrifice enables that. Like officially when a person converts, they're supposed to bring a sacrifice. The Gemara has increased this. You have a bris milah and a tefillah, and you bring a korban. And we learn from our Sinai. So there also is the korban there because of atonement. Doesn't sound like it. Somehow it can enable your conversion. I don't know. So like a similar idea. Sometimes a sacrifice can enable. We have to see more. Yeah. So basically, stay till Nazir and then you can drop out. No, I'm kidding. So Amar Rabbanan Kamei the Rabbah. Okay. So now the rabbis sat in front of Rabbah. So I think it's some of the same rabbis that we started off with today. Yeah. They were teaching in the Academy of Rabbah. That was the first Gemara said. They were teaching in the Academy of Rabbah. And he said to them now, he told them the following. And that's going to take us to the next stopping point. So he told them, yeah, he told them, Amar Lahu, he said to the rabbis, Michlal Techilo Asrbe Ve'ika Edim Mechayev. He says, your question was, what happens when witnesses warn the guy, you make sure you tell the truth, don't lie. You want to know what happens in that case. Lashes, sacrifice, both. But from your question, the implication of your question is, if they never warned him, but they were still there, that he's still liable for violating this oath. So you have two witnesses that know that he has the object in his garage. They just didn't warn him. And someone comes and says, Ruvain, where's my object? He says, object? I don't know. He says, make a shvuah. He said, no problem. Makes a shvuah, no idea where your object is. And there are two witnesses there that know that the object is in his garage. So Rabbah's going to assume now that kfiras dvarim ba'almahu, is that really a denial? I mean, when two witnesses are right there, and in 1 second they're going to come and say, it's in his garage, he owes the money, we know where it is. And they're going to obligate him because you have two witnesses who know the facts. Is your denial really a denial, or it's just words? You have a camera that's showing, you're watching the camera showing that, that's a Yeruvain. You're watching the camera show that you just killed Shimon. It's right in front of you. And you come and you say, no, I didn't do it. Does that count as anything? It's just mere words. It's like gibberish. What did you do? There's camera footage right in front of you. You took a gun and you shot him in the head. How can you deny that? So that's what Rabbah thinks right now. We'll see if he lasts. But he says, if you deny something and there's two witnesses that are there, that's just mere words. So he says, according to you, Rabbah, sounds like you're going to be obligated. Rabbah says, why? That's kfiras dvarim ba'almahu. That's just denial, that's just words. That's not a real denial. Alma kasavra, Rabbah must hold, hakofer b'mammon, you deny money. Sheyei shalav edim pater. If you, anytime a person denies that he owes money, and there are witnesses that know that he owes money, then you're going to be exempt. I guess, does he have to know that they're witnesses, or does someone have to know? I guess someone has to know that they're witnesses. Does the denier have to know that they're witnesses? Or as long as the court knows that they're witnesses?
The person who's saying that, no, I didn't do it, doesn't realize they're witnesses. Or does he realize?
That's what I'm asking, right?
Question.
So for sure, if he realizes that they're witnesses, Rabbah's going to say, that's just words. That's not a real denial. What if he doesn't know that they're witnesses, but the other guy knows that they're witnesses? Shimon knows that there's witnesses, but Reuben doesn't know. So Reuben, you owe me $1 million. Now Shimon knows that. Can't be. How's it that Reuben knows that they're witnesses? Because whenever someone's claiming somebody for money, they probably have witnesses in their back pocket. I'm assuming Reuben doesn't know that. Reuben knows that they're witnesses. The way the Gemara makes it sound like it's as long as witnesses know, that's enough. So I'm just asking, Does the guy denying have to know? Or as long as there are witnesses there? Isn't every case going to be like that? A guy denies it, and then two guys show up and say, "Oh, we know." So you're going to say that retroactively?
Witnesses who contradicted the data is for all practical purposes. So it seems like any.
It's just a funny thing. I mean, it's anytime someone denies something, 2 weeks later, two guys show up and say, "We know testimony." So that's not considered a denial. It would mean that the whole section of denial over here is only going to apply when witnesses never show up. Because as long as they show up, you'll say, "Oh, now we're going to reject this truth."
At the end of the day, the status quo is what you say it is, unless somebody comes in and contradicts it.
Irrelevant if there are witnesses there, right?
I said to you, you were in a green suit.
Mm-hmm.
I say, if you say your suit's green,
Okay.
it's green until Jews come and say, "Hey, that's black." Not green.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Rabbah isn't get rejected at the very end, but it's just interesting that right. It sounds like the way the Gemara sounds like, as long as you deny money, that there are witnesses about the money. It doesn't specify that Reuven has to know about them. How? Oh, you know what? It just popped into my head. No, this is not going to work. If 1 second. If there are witnesses right in front of him, then his denial is totally meaningless. Everyone agrees to that. If you have two guys in front of you, then that's meaningless. They must be that he doesn't know about them. They come later. Yeah, it must be. Someone talks about it. Yeah, okay, to find it. Someone talks about it. Okay, so either way, so fine. So that's a dispute now between Rabbah and the Rabbanon. If witnesses know about it, are you off the hook or not? So is it considered denial or it's considered just mere words? Amr le Rav Chanina Rabbah. So Rav Chanina says to Rabbah, "I'll bring you a brisa supporting your claim." It says v'chicheshba. If you deny it, so deny what? Prat. It's coming to exclude a certain case. Lemodeh le'echad min ha'achin. We'll see exactly what the case is in a second. You admit to one of the brothers or to one of the partners. Now, what you admit, we'll see in a second, and what you deny, we'll see in a second. Then it says, "V'nishpa al sheker." You lie about something which is false. It's coming to exclude prat lilove b'shtar v'love be'edim. That's coming. You're only liable if you lie, if you swear about something which is false, excluding a love b'shtar and a love be'edim. One who borrowed money, who has witnesses against him. One who borrowed money, who has a document saying you owe money against him. Those cases, those denials are nothing. It's just mere words. So that sounds exactly like Rabbah. And whenever you have someone with witnesses there or a document there, that it's not considered denial. It's just words. So to that we say no. Amar le. If that brisa you want to use as a proof to me, it's not a proof to me. Lo tesayan. Why? Because ba'omer levisi v'lo levisi be'edon levisi b'shtar. I'm not denying. The brisa said very vaguely. I'm denying something with witnesses. I'm denying something with a document. It just means, or you could say at least that it means, you're admitting levisi I borrowed. You're just saying I didn't borrow with witnesses. You're saying I borrowed, but I didn't borrow with a document. So you're just denying a detail. You're not denying the whole claim. It's not that you're saying I never borrowed money, and two witnesses are saying you did borrow money. You're saying I borrowed money, I just didn't borrow with witnesses, or I borrowed money, I didn't borrow with a shtar. So therefore, that's not a proof to what we're talking about. We're talking about a guy denies with an oath when there are witnesses that when there are witnesses that know about the case. In this case, he's admitting that he owes. He just denies one detail. So that's not our conversation. So, okay. So, Mimai, you originally want to bring a proof from this brisa. Why? Midikatani v'chicheshbra. Prat. So now let's analyze it. You denied something, coming to exclude a case where you're exempt, which is what case? It's coming to exclude where you admitted to one of the brothers or one of the business partners. So what's that case exactly? What's the case when you admitted to a brother? So let's say you say, you only admitted that really, this brother owes that brother half the money. He really owes him $1,000,000. And you come and say, no, he really owes he owes him $500,000. Well, that's still denial of money. You admitted to half, ha'ika kfir idach, and you still denied half. So that's a regular case of denial. That's nothing to do with us. Our case was you tried to prove that you denied the money entirely. So elolav, it must be a case that amri lay. Sorry, in that case, you'd be liable. Why are you excluding that case? That's still a regular case of denial. Elolav, the amri lay, the brothers say mitravainan yisafta. They say from both of us you borrowed money, and you say v'amar lahu lo mechad minaychu yasvi. So let's say two of them say from both of us you borrowed money, and you deny and you say only from one of you did I borrow money. So now you have two witnesses in the face of a denial, and yet we're saying that you're exempt. The havyalei kfiras dvarim ba'alma. Says the Gemara, well, once you establish the beginning of the case as kfiras dvarim ba'alma, just a mere denial of words. It's not a real denial. It's just words because it's in the face of two witnesses. So then umidiresha kfiras dvarim, seifanami kfiras dvarim. The end of that brisa that was talking about denying to the borrower or denying in the face of that you're denying in the face of witnesses or denying in the face of a document, say the same thing over there. It's going to be a case where really you are denying the loan in the face of witnesses, denying in the face of a document. That's also going to be just kfiras dvarim ba'alma. One second. And therefore what? And therefore it'd be a good proof? No. Therefore it's not going to be a good proof. Why not? Yeah, why not? So how do we end off that? From the first part of the brisa is just a mere denial of words. The end of the brisa is what?
Established that the first part of the brisa deals with a tangential denial when concerning the identity of the lender, while the lender admits an essential monetary claim against him. Stands to reason that the second part of the brisa deals with my case. It's with owing the money but merely denies that he borrowed it in front of witnesses. Such the brisa does not deal with the type of case discussed with Rabba. Complete denial is not by witnesses to be false.
Yeah, it uses the same words, but it means different things. The point that at the beginning of the brisa is talking about inconsequential facts, and so to then, therefore, the end of the brisa is also talking about inconsequential facts, just like the beginning of the brisa was talking about if you denied from one brother or from two brothers you borrowed. So to the end of the brisa is also talking about where you denied inconsequential facts, and therefore it cannot be a proof to Rabbah, because Rabbah was saying when you denied a loan, when you denied actual money in front of when witnesses knew about it, but denying a inconsequential fact or a detail, that's not our discussion. So therefore the brisa can't be a proof to Rabbah because it's talking about you're denying mere details, you're not denying the actual loan itself. Okay, Tashma eno chayav al shkaso. You're not liable for shikago. So we had this brisa that said that in some case you're not liable for total inadvertence. What are you liable for an oath of deposit? Al Zadono Asham B'Kesef Shkolim. You're liable if you do it inadvertently for a guilt offering B'Kesef Shkolim with 2 silver coins. Says the Gemara, Mai Lav Zadon Ve'edim. Are you not talking about a case where you advertently denied it in front of witnesses? And if that's true, then all you're liable is a sacrifice. And back to our first question, that what you're going to be liable on sacrifice? Says no. Lo Zadon Atzmo. There was no witnesses here. It's just your own denial. Oh, sorry. It was a proof. It was a proof against Rabbah that you're liable even though there's witnesses here. Says the Gemara, no, you're not liable. There's no witnesses, and you did it inadvertently where there's no witnesses. Rabbah said if you deny something and there are witnesses that know about the case, it's not considered a denial. This case is where there was no witnesses. Okay. Now, Tashtan, we had this earlier. You have 2 sets of witnesses. Kafar Rishona, V'achar Kafar Shnia. They both deny testimony one after another. So says I think it was a Mishnah, says Shtein Chayavos. They're both liable. When they're found to be liars, they're both liable. Why? The testimony could have been upheld with either of their testimonies. They lied that they don't know testimony and they're found to be liars, they're going to be liable. So this is just a Gemara from earlier says Bishlama Shnia Tichayiv. So when the first group of witnesses denied, okay, they denied, they're found to be liars, fine. But when they denied, basically the second group right now could have either obligated the guy money or not. So really, the second pair of witnesses are the ones that are really liable, because the $1 million that Reuben owed Shimon was really dependent on them. And when they lied about it and they're found to be liars, then they're going to be liable. That makes sense. But why is the first pair liable? You're only liable for the oath of testimony if it's regarding money. If there's 2 sets of witnesses that come, the first pair, let's say they denied it, fine. But so what? You have a second pair still here that can obligate money. So the kafar lakat rishona, ela rishona, amay mechayva. Why is the first set liable? So hakaima shnia, you have a second set of witnesses that are about to testify. So the money transferring pocket is not really fully dependent on you. So what do we see? We see that even though the first pair of witnesses lied in the face of another pair of witnesses, that's like denying in the face of witnesses. That's like denying in the face of witnesses, and therefore they're going to be liable. So it sounds like denying in the presence of witnesses, you're going to be liable. Oh, a proof against Rabbah. So he says, no. We had earlier, Amar Ravina, what's the case? Krovim Benisho say, and Benisho saying goes so Smadu Timur of goes to Lamisa, Kamash Malon, Ashta Mia Chai Ninu, Velo Shchivi. What was the case? That when the first group testified, the second case, they were both married to sisters, and their sisters were on their deathbed, and that's called the Goses. And therefore, even though they are relatives, but the Gemara, you would have thought that since they're about to die, they're halachically considered dead already, which would then validate the 2 brother-in-laws to be valid witnesses. That's what you would have thought. And if that would be true, so then for sure, the first pair of witnesses are going to be liable because it's all dependent on them, because the second pair can't testify because they're relatives. So you would have thought that they're not relatives because their wives are about to die. Kamash Shmalan, at the end of the day, Hashta Miyachai, they're still alive. As long as the wives are still alive, we don't say that halachically they're dead until they die. And as long as they're still alive, they're brother-in-laws, and therefore the first pair is going to be liable.
They don't both have to die. It's just one of them.
Right. Right. Saying why is the mistake is that they're both Goses. That's a good point. True. Why? No. After they die, they're still related. After you die, you're still related, except for the case of Yibum, where it's
There's something. I mean, it's such a rare case.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true.
Because it's
the point of these rare cases is that you're trying to bring a conclusive proof about somebody. It has to be 100% conclusive.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you're stuck wondering why is the first case liable. So you come to one of two conclusions. Either you're liable because well, we're not sure why we're liable. It has to be some reason why you're liable. We're not sure. So the only case we could think of is this case. That was Rabina's way to understand why are you liable. Once we said that, we could also use that now to as a that it's not going to be an attack on Rabbah. But at the end of the day, the Gemara, the question's better than the answer. You can be stuck with a very good question, the price that makes no sense, or give a difficult answer. But you're right, the difficult answers are always our last resort. But they're still there. They're still there if you need to pull it out of your pocket. Yeah. So, okay. So Tashma says the Bryce another attempted proof. So now what happened? The guy comes and says, "Where's my car? Where's my car?" So he says, "Your car stolen." Sorry. So and then Vinishpa, and he swears that he doesn't have it; it was stolen. And then Vahoda, and he admits it's in my other garage. Yeah. So Vinishpa Vahoda. So now Ubo Edim, and now witnesses come and say, yeah, the car's over there. So now, when did he come and admit that? Did he admit when witnesses came already, or he admitted before they came? So, well, it's going to make a big difference for Rabbah, because according to Rabbah, if witnesses were there, if he admitted before they came, so then it's going to be one case. So let's see. If before witnesses came, he admits that he lied falsely, he swore falsely, what does he pay? Mishalim, he pays. Principal, Karen means principal. V'chomesh, you pay a fifth, more than the principal. V'asham, and you bring a guilt offering. Yeah. So now, but imishabo edim, if witnesses already came, and then you admitted, so then mishalim tashlume kefil v'asham. Then you only pay for your penalty of paying double the amount. V'asham. You don't pay the chomesh, because Rashi brings it's a drasha and Bava Kama. You only pay a fifth when you have to pay the principal. When you don't pay the principal, then you don't pay the fifth. So in this case, you're just paying the penalty and not the principal. Once no principal, then no fifth. Fine. So, but what do you see from here? That when witnesses come, it's still a liable denial. You admit it even after witnesses came. It's still a good denial. You're still liable for something. As long as you're liable for something, then that's going to be against Rabbah. Says the Gemara, no. Hachanami kidravina. You can say this case is also with they're married to sisters, and therefore they're relatives, and therefore you would have thought, and therefore they're dying, and you thought that they're not relatives. So you can get out of this also by establishing the case to be like we just said according to Ravina, and therefore it's not going to be a proof. Yeah. Right. The witnesses, they're really relative at the time that they made a shvuah, and that's why they're going to be liable. So if the witnesses were relatives, so when the guy denies, even though there are witnesses there, but they're not valid witnesses, they're relatives. So therefore, it's not a proof. Rabbah is talking about a case where you have valid witnesses. Now, when you have not valid witnesses. Okay. Amrle Ravina Ravashi says Ravina to Ravashi. Tashma, another brisa. Chamura, which we had earlier. Chamura limana shvuos bikadon shechayavin al zlama makos v'ashgaso asham b'ketzav shkolim. So the oath of deposit, you're liable if you do it advertently. You're liable makos. You're liable lashes. The al shigagaso, if you do it inadvertently, you're liable a guilt offering, which is going to cost you 2 silver zuz. So now, midika amar loka. Once you said you get lashes, it must be michlal dika edim. You must have got warned first, or else you can't get lashes. Vika amar, and what does it say? Al shigagaso asham b'ketzav shkolim. And yet it says if you do it inadvertently, you bring a sacrifice. So it's a case there has to be witnesses here because there's lashes. Therefore, there has to be witnesses. So too in the case of where you did it inadvertently, there's also going to be witnesses there, which means if you deny in front of witnesses, you're still going to be liable, not like Rabbah against Rabbah. Amr lahu Rav Mordechai. So bar mina dahi. So aside from that, the Amr lahu Rav Kahana, I taught. Aside from that, what Rav Kahana told you, when I came, I taught the brisa in the following way. And this is how I taught it. Echad zidona, one person who swears falsely, he denies the oath, he denies this oath of deposit advertently. The echad shegagasi, or he denies it inadvertently. Asham bekesef shkalim. He brings a asham bekesef shkalim. He brings his guilt offering. So you see the way he taught it, nothing to do with lashes, and therefore nothing to do with witnesses, and therefore not a proof against Rabbah. So that's what we get out of it. One more, and this one's going to be the final kicker. Tashma, one more brisa. So we're comparing now a nazir that became impure to someone who denied with the oath of deposit. Lo im amers ben nazir tamei shekain loka tomer b'shvus b'kadon she'eino loka. A nazir tamei, when he violates his nazirus and he becomes impure, he gets lashes. Tomer b'shvus b'kadon. So too, when you violate your oath of deposit, you don't get lashes. So what's the case? Hey chidami. Either leka edim, if there's no witnesses, so amai loka, you can never get punished unless there's warning ahead of time. Ela pshita must be the ika edim, and that's why the nazir gets lashes. And yet, in the same sentence, you said the katani tomer b'shvus apikadon she'eino loka, that but by an oath of deposit, you don't get lashes. So it's the same case. So therefore, there must be witnesses over here. And yet it says milkahu delolaki. The inference is lashes you don't get. You're right. If you deny the oath of deposit, lashes you won't get. However, aval korban maisi, but an offering you still have to bring. So even though there are witnesses that know about the case, and you denied it, your denial is a valid denial, even though there are witnesses, and that's tiyufta de rabba tiyufta. 2 tiyuftas is like a double KO. Like that's it. You're done. One tiyufta you can get out of. 2 tiyuftas, you're done. It's an explicit brisa that goes against Rabbah, which clearly says that a denial in the face of witnesses is still a valid, not in the face of witnesses, but a denial where witnesses know about the case is going to be considered a valid denial, and therefore you're still going to be liable, and that's not like Rabbah. Okay.